Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Empower You. I'm your host, Janet Hickox, and I also have my co-host, Roger Wetzel, here with me today. Hello, Roger.
Hi, Janet. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, on this bright, sunshiny day in the northwest corner of Washington State. And with us today is our guest, Susan Powell. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Janet. Hi, Roger.
Hey, Susan.
I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, you know, and Roger, we've been working on the concepts of healing, alternative forms of healing, holistic healing. That has been our theme for the entire month of March. And Susan has come to us. I don't know, Roger, you met Susan somehow and then found out she was an extraordinary healer and, in fact, a holistic health educator. I loved that. I'm really intrigued by that. So I want to get into talking about that a little bit. But let me tell folks a little bit about you, Susan. Susan, I don't want to leave this. Hold on. Sorry. That was a mess. Susan Powell is a holistic health educator, medicine wheel guide, and access consciousness bars and body process facilitator with a deep interest and a background in exploring techniques for effecting positive change in her own and her clients' sense of wellness. From a variety of bodywork therapies to holotropic breathwork, from Native American ceremonies to access consciousness, and from theater for living, work to rediscovery. For over 30 years, she has investigated numerous modalities and traditions of healing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Susan. And I'm just going to start by letting you have a chance to tell us about who you are and how you came to be interested in the holistic healing field.
Well, thank you for introducing me and for inviting me, both of you. It's a pleasure to be here. And let's see, it's kind of a long story, but I'll keep it short. I arrived on the planet like the rest of us, and it's kind of like you get whacked upside the head and a little jumbled a bit, and even kind of forget who you are and who you came here to be, and then slowly coming around to, oh, this is how people live here, and inside myself, I knew that I always knew something else was possible. And probably like many of your viewers and followers, I too went through a pretty bumpy time in my childhood, and it wasn't all awful, but there were a lot of pretty yucky things that happened, and I had a sense that there was something wrong with me, and that I needed fixing, and I needed help, and I needed to change, and all of that sort of thing. And so I got busy just looking into other possibilities. And when I was about 10 or so, my aunt, I was living with my dad's mother, my grandmother, and my aunt came home from work one day and said, "Can you rub my shoulders?" And I just fell in love with massaging her shoulders. And I walked on her back, and I just felt like I was doing something cool, and it felt good. My body loves to touch other bodies, and it loves to be touched. And so it was it was a safe place, after going through certain abuses and things, it was a safe place to experience touch. So that got me going, and I kept going on with that through my teenage years. And then my grandmother wanted me to become a Catholic so I could go to Catholic school, because she felt that was the best kind of education. So there I was. And the other thing about me, you can probably tell that I'm not all of European background. My mother was Oglala Lakota, and so I look and present very native, but I was being raised by the white side of my family in Virginia as a Southern white Roman Catholic. So it was kind of a strange place to be, but I just girded my loins and went forward as best I could. And so while there were some really lovely teachings within the church framework, there were a lot of things that inside my little being was going, I don't think so. I think somebody made a mistake here. So I was 14 years old, and my aunt and my grandmother used to have these kind of slightly intense conversations around. My grandmother was just so wanted us to be good Christians, and my aunt had already branched out on her own. She was 12 years older than me, and they made a bet or an agreement that my aunt would reread the Bible if my grandmother would read Autobiography of a Yogi. So
That's a great one.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So as soon as she was done with it, I read it. And it was the first book that I ever read way back then that I just thought, wow, this is more the energy of what I'm interested in. And he even talked about another way of looking at the teachings of Jesus that just felt so much more in alignment with me. So that, along with being so interested in anything that might be possible, so from astrology to tarot and macrobiotic eating and health foods things and all of that, I eventually made my way to looking into massage therapy school. And took me a while, but I found a place. It was called Heartwood College in Santa Cruz, and then later Garberville, California. And they had a training program.
I've been there. I've been to Garberville. Oh my gosh.
It's gorgeous.
I stayed there. It's beautiful there.
So idyllic. And
yeah.
And so the one of the heads of the school, Bruce Berger, his idea was to introduce us to all things holistic, to kind of give us a smorgasbord so that we could then decide, choose for ourselves what would be our main focus. And so we learned herbology and diet and nutrition and yoga and anatomy and physiology and polarity and massage. And we started every class with a song and ended every class with a song. And it just really fit with me and where I wanted to go. And so and then another thing that helped get me through, other things that helped get me through my early years was nature and going out to be with nature. I felt every day amongst people that it seemed like, and certainly back then, I don't know how it was for you guys growing up, but it seemed like adults were always looking to see what I had done wrong. Or in the South, they say what you're fixing to do. So I was fixing to get into trouble, or I'd already been into trouble, and it was just, but when I was in nature, I felt peaceful, and nature wasn't looking at my wrongness. Nature was just accepting me and reflecting beauty back to me. So I felt peaceful there. And I got into classical Russian ballet. And my interesting point of view is that ballet actually helped save my life and get me through my teenage years, because I was in a ballet company and I was in the ballet studio every day for hours and plus rehearsals. And so I couldn't get too involved in killing myself with drugs and alcohol. So, ballet was really great that way. And
few ledges for you to jump off into.
Oh my goodness. It's a different kind of, just jump into somebody's arms and be lifted into the sky. That was a different.
Are you living in Northern California at this point in time, or were you still in Virginia?
I was still in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in a ballet company when I was in high school.
Nice.
Yeah. Very nice. And so then I went to California, via Colorado and all sorts of other adventures. I've moved around a lot. And so so I was living in Florida at one point, and this fellow with whom I was acquainted, but I didn't really know him.
Mm-hmm.
You know how there's critters on the planet that are wild. We call them wild, and they live not in a domesticated way. And many people that I met were domesticated. And this man was not a domesticated man. He, in terms of his energy, he wasn't like, some kind of walking around with leaves in his hair or something, but he just is energetically, he was different. Yeah. And I always felt a little nervous around him because I was raised to be a good girl and just kind of stay within certain parameters of how to be. And he showed up at my doorstep one day, and I was like, wow, how did he find out where I lived? But I invited him in, and he had two gifts to give me and some words. And one was a beautiful kind of Navajo style necklace with lots of big chunky turquoise and silver on it. And this book about that it had phrases about the medicine wheel in it. And he said, I just think this might be cool for you to check out. And then he left. And so as soon as I read the words medicine wheel, something inside me, after looking at, Christianity and Pentecostalism and, Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and all these things, and they all had good things for me. When I saw the medicine wheel, something inside me, it was like a little, dowser, it just went, yes, that. And it took me 3 years from then, and really about 3,000 miles, to find the woman who became my medicine teacher. Her name is Mahogany, and in English, Evelyn Eaton, and she's since passed on. But as soon as I met her, I just fell in love with this beautiful, beautiful elder, and I just followed her around and spent time with her. And when she had a catastrophic health issue and was hospitalized, it was in the area where I actually lived, so I could just kind of show up and be there. And when they finally were able to take her home, I got a call about a month later saying, it's so intense. We're asking a few people if they'd be willing to come and assist. And I just said, I'll be there in 2 weeks. And they're like, no, think about it. I said, I've thought about it. I'll be there in 2 weeks. And so I was able to be part of the team that assisted her in being comfortable before she made her final journey. And so that's kind of the long and the short of it. And then I've continued over the years just to look for modalities that help me, and so, it's great if it helped you, but if it didn't do anything for me, I can say, well, it worked on Janet, so maybe you want to check it out, but I can't really say for sure. From my own experience. And one of the things I noticed, you guys, is that over the years, there was this whole thing about healing takes a long time. And you really have to work at it and slog through it and all this stuff for a long time. That was the model forever. But, in the last 10 or so years, it's really gotten to how quickly change can actually happen.
Right.
And then there's the awareness that there's actually never been anything wrong with us, but that we ended up buying all these lies that there was something wrong. And so it's just been about reconnecting with who we truly are. And so the medicine wheel continues to be a really beautiful, it's an assistant on your journey. It's a map. It's a ceremony. It's all kinds of things. It's a reminder, and a way of reflecting back to yourself about yourself. And I've just witnessed over all these 30 odd years all the profound changes that people have experienced with it. And then some people, kind of go into the spiritual materialism end of things and make it be really significant, and we're doing this ceremony, and and how special am I? I'm in the ceremony, and I did that too, but once you kind of get over that,
I did that one time.
Yeah, just once though.
For a moment. It was only a moment.
Just a moment, and then I got slapped upside my head. No, but harden up. But there's this thing where we just get to this point, I guess ultimately, as long as you don't give up, you're going to get where you would like to go. And like that, who is it? E.E. Cummings had that wonderful poem about you'll finally, you'll arrive to where you were and finally recognize that place. You'll see it for the first time, and I'm butchering the whole thing, but that concept that we're on this adventure, and it's always like Dorothy,
she was
just had you were always at home, and so we
wasn't
are
in Kansas.
Yeah. Well, it could have been
Let's go to Kansas,
wherever home is for you, and so. Yeah, and I guess that's just to wrap up is